we are almost, no, it is 3 o'clock. So let's go ahead and get started because I want to make sure that I value everyone's time. Today we're blessed and we're pleased to have Mr. Greg Small joining us, giving of his Sunday to share some information with us regarding any questions or that anyone may have. Before we get started, though, let me point out that today is Greg's birthday. Happy birthday,
Yeah.
Greg.
Thanks, Wayne. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. It is his birthday, and I'm blown away, man. Because he could be doing other things, celebrating his birthday right now, but he's spending time with us. So I really appreciate
Well,
that.
I appreciate the opportunity to get together with everybody, and we had a little Ruth Ann and I had a little celebration last night. So
There it
the
is.
rest of the family is often well, three boys are at the Chiefs game, uh, which starts in a half hour or so. So uh, they're
Okay.
uh, they're enjoying 93-degree. Uh, uh, Sitting in the stands for the Chiefs game. So
True fans, dedicated fans.
yeah,
I tell you what, before we're going to roll right into the questions, but before we do that, this weekend was the first NCAA regional meeting in Atlanta. I know this coming weekend there's another meeting in Indianapolis. I believe there's two sessions this coming weekend, Saturday and Sunday, with the last meeting I believe scheduled for October 5th in Phoenix. And for those of you who may not be familiar with the NCAA regional meetings, what they're about and the purpose, Tanner Gray, do me a favor. Can you walk everybody through what the regional meetings, what are the purposes? What is the purpose for a
sure.
meeting and what
Yeah.
is it about?
Um, I mean, when I first was hired at the Division I level, I really didn't have much of an idea of what went on. All I knew is the you were required to attend, but it is a very valuable meeting that's run by our national coordinator and our national rules editor. Um, and this year being a rules change year, the majority of what I have not seen the itinerary yet, but the majority
Right.
of what will take place will be John Levinson kind of breaking down the rule changes. It's open. It's an open forum. There's a discussion about those and clarification if he has any of those at this point. But then Penny Davis will take over and go through anything that mechanically any changes, those sort of things. Kind of her um, philosophy of how she wants our program at all levels, Division I, Division II, and Division III, to look. And she just kind of lays the groundwork for the upcoming season, and she also goes through and kind of puts the process of the selection for all tournaments, Division III, Division II, and Division I.
Right.
Very transparent. She wants everybody to be aware of how that process kind of um, starts at the beginning of the year with registration on RQ and then background checks. Um, at the Division I level, it's a little bit different, and I don't know. I may talk about that. I don't need to talk about that now, but
Right.
it's a very valuable meeting. And yeah, you're right. I'm going for the first session next Saturday in Indianapolis, and then one of our new regional advisor will be at the second. Brian Enterline was
Brian
hired
Interline.
back in August, and
Yes.
he'll be a valuable um, member of our team. So looking forward to seeing him again. And my very last game of my career was with Brian. Uh, at KU, Larry, and so that was I've always really respected Brian and what he's done, and he'll bring a lot to our team. So looking
That's
forward to working
excellent.
with him.
That is
Yeah.
that is excellent. That's good. Good. Well, that's just a little information that for those of you who may have had that experience, yet a number you will real soon. It
Yep.
gives you an idea of what to expect. And let's roll right into. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, Greg. I'm assuming everybody knows who you are, your story, your history, and all of your details. And instead of me running on this long list of your bio, how about if you just share a little bit of yourself with the group as a whole, a little bit of your
Okay.
history.
Sure. Um, this is not my forte, Wayne. You know that.
I know.
I don't necessarily like to talk about myself, but I officiated 39 years, 34 at the Division One level, and was blessed to have opportunities to officiate in 17 NCAA tournaments and um, I had three regional finals, and then I had three Final Fours in 2001, 2002, and 2004. So, my path is not much different probably than a lot of people's. I started doing rec ball and moved up through middle school and high school and had some opportunities to get to camp and worked in the MIAA, one of the conferences that I assigned. I didn't mention that necessarily, but I
Hmm.
assigned two Division two conferences in the Midwest, the MIAA, which consists of 14 teams in Nebraska, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, and then the Great American Conference, which is six Arkansas and six Oklahoma schools. So that's my focus right now. I retired from officiating in March of 2023, and then in August I was hired by the NCAA as one of the regional advisors. We had a regional advisor had retired, and I was interested, and Penny.
Hmm.
Uh, was kind of started the vetting. I think at our camp, she asked to come to our camp in Kansas City, and then it just kind of moved from there. So I was hired in August. So yeah,
That's good. Good. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing. And I know that that's not your comfort level,
no, no.
but that's okay. We're going to roll right into the first question we have for the day, and I really appreciate everyone being here today. We will do our best to try to get to as many questions as possible and still allow Greg to get back to two things: celebrating his birthday and watching the Chiefs. Okay, because
It's
that's
being
paramount.
recorded, so we're good. Yeah, I'll
Okay.
catch up. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Leanne Stevenson, are you on the call?
Yes, sir.
How you doing today?
Excellent. How are y'all?
Good, good. Hey, do you happen to have a question for Greg that anything you're curious about?
I do. I do. Hi, Greg, and happy
Hey,
birthday.
Leanne.
Um, all right, let's see what I had. Um, since you are now the regional advisor, and I'd probably tie this into GAC and MIAA too, just from past experience. What are the key characteristics you look for now in that new position when observing officials as a regional advisor for postseason recommendations, and also what's the overall process?
Right. I'll start with your last part, the process. The process is actually probably underway um, with some of the Division One coordinators already. They're compiling and we'll meet as a regional advisor team is with Penny and Lynn Andrew early October, and we'll have a watch list that is provided by the coordinators to Penny, and she'll have it broken down. She doesn't assign us who we're going to observe during the season, but we'll have a group of about 60 to 70 officials that each regional advisor is assigned to see at least twice during the season. It doesn't necessarily have to be in person, but I prefer to do it in person. But sometimes logistics of some of these official schedule just doesn't give us the opportunity to do that. We may have to do it by video. So we look at them twice. We may see people from outside our specific watch list, which Penny prefers, because then that just gives another set of eyes and a little bit different perspective on that particular official. And then they may have an off night one night and may come back and somebody else sees them and they just knock it out of the park. So it also, obviously not every game's the same. So I may observe a really easy game at one point and everybody rates really high and their call charts are all, 95% or above correct calls. And then the next time I see them, it may be a conference game in late January, early February, and it's just a tough matchup, and maybe three different crew members, besides who I'm looking at, and it's just better to see people, in different parts of the season and by different eyes if we can do it. So we'll pair that. Once we see him and we come together then in early March, then that watch list will be pared down from about 270 to about 130. And so it's a pretty extensive system that Penny has set up. We have all the data from our call charts for every game that we do on all three officials, whether they're on the watch list or not. I still do a call chart on each one of the officials. And then we have a performance evaluation form that we fill out on each one of the officials. That's submitted to Penny. It's also submitted to all the conference coordinators, so they can actually share that information with the officials if they choose to. Some choose not to, but some will, and we think it's a valuable tool for them to have, especially if they get it in a timely manner. If they get it for a December game and they haven't started January conference play yet, it could be very valuable for them. If there's something that we see that they need to address, then that gives them an opportunity to make an adjustment and move forward. My first year, 3 years ago, we were allowed to go into the locker room with the officials after the game for about 5 or 10 minutes, share maybe 5 plays total, and just kind of give them some feedback right there and out, and we're on our way and we're going. Unfortunately, last year some things kind of came down from the NCAA and from the national office that we were not allowed to go into the locker room. That's their choice, and some of it was because of the conference coordinator, some other reasoning behind it. So we don't have that opportunity anymore. So basically, I'm in. I get set up before the game. I go through the call charts during the game, and then once I get to the hotel or back home, then I'll spend another probably couple hours going back through the game again, looking at those plays. As I graded them in real time, I'll look at them on DB Sport and have an opportunity to maybe change whether I thought it was a correct call or maybe I thought it was an incorrect call. Then I can change those at that time, and then I submit those to and then do my performance evaluation, which is about another hour to an hour and a half, and then I submit those to Penny, and off I go for the next game. So that, I think it's given me the opportunity to have, when you relate it to the GAC and the MIAA, it's given me some perspective on official evaluations during the game. I had, before I got the regional advisor job, I had worked for the NCAA, but I was an independent contractor at the Division II Elite Eight. I did 4 of those and did the same kind of call charts, and not quite as extensive as it is with the Division I, and they still do it at the Division II and I believe the Division III level too during their tournaments, but they don't do that during the year. the Division II tournament officials are set up. We, as conference coordinators, make recommendations through our national coordinator, and then she watches those officials. We start our recommendations, I think, in the middle of December, and she knows who we've recommended, and then she watches your games during the year, and then we have a final recommendation sheet that we submit, usually by the middle of February, and then she makes a decision on who she feels like she wants to bring to regional sites, all 8 regional sites all over the country. So I believe Division III is a little bit different. I'm really not that familiar with it. I've really never had much connection with Division III, so that kind of gives you an idea of that. As far as how it relates to the GAC, I think, and the MIAA, I think it gives me an opportunity. I may be out on the road, and the last 2 years, I've had an opportunity to get to schools in the GAC and the MIAA if I'm traveling from one Division I game to another, to stop and watch an MIAA game or a GAC game when I'm on the roads, which has been very beneficial. And just the input and the insight that I get from all the regional advisors, as well as Penny, has been very helpful for me to evaluate our officials, recruit new officials, and kind of have some criteria, which is kind of in our evaluations that we do during camp, to hopefully continue to grow both of our Division II staffs. So.
That's good. That's really good. And actually, Greg, you answered one of the questions that I had, so I appreciate that. Leanne,
Okay.
does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Leanne.
Excellent. So let's stay in the state of Texas. Okay, like last weekend, I got stuck in the state of Oklahoma and we barely got out with our questions. So we're going to start in Texas this week.
Okay.
In Dallas, Rosa Rodriguez, you have a question for Greg.
I do. Hi, Greg.
Hey,
Happy
Rosa.
birthday.
Hey, thank you.
What trends do you see in college basketball officiating that officials should be preparing for?
I think with our rule change this year, as far as the multiple touches on the ball handler dribbler, I know Penny's had some conversations with us. There, even though it's okay now, and it's not an automatic foul. I think one of the trends that we'll see is we'll back off too much on contact on the ball handler dribbler. There can still be a foul on a multiple touch situation. It would not be, we would not give the multiple touch signal, because that doesn't exist anymore. But we could still have things that affect rhythm, speed, balance, and we could still have a foul. It might be a push, or some other type of signal as far as displacement. But I think we need to be aware that nothing's changed other than just the multiple touch. We can still have fouls on ball handler dribble, because we came so far with allowing freedom of movement with our ball handler dribbler that Penny doesn't want to see that kind of go by the wayside, and now we have to start from ground zero again. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve here with the multiple touch, but I'm meeting with all of our GAC coaches on Tuesday, and we'll have an MIAA meeting too, so they'll be aware of this. But I think that's one concern. I think the level of physicality is another concern, Rosa, that we need to be aware of. Obviously, rebounding is a huge area of emphasis, and we need to make sure that we're getting good open looks on plays that from the very beginning. I mean, before as the shot's in the air, we need to be focusing on finding our primaries and our rebounders in that primary area, and make sure we're kind of eliminating the clamps, the pushes, the displacement. You're going to see some video. I've already seen part of the video that you'll see if you go to one of the NCAA meetings, or if you there's going to be a Division II and a Division III question and answer And I think they'll show part of the video on that as well. Plus, everybody will have an opportunity to see it. It'll be on RefQuest at some point after the meetings are over. But she's got some excellent rebounding videos. Screening, I think, is probably an area that we see as regional advisors that is probably one of the least consistent areas. I think we've gotten better with it, but knowing what constitutes a legal screen, how can a screener become legal, or how can they be illegal, and then referee that according to those criteria. So I think another big area that Penny is going to emphasize is just sportsmanship. Taunting by players has risen. We've had they see things either on the men's side or at the pro level that just kind of filter down, and that's a real concern in our game, is just the optics of presenting our players in a positive light and making sure that if they do something. Obviously, last year we did a much better job with it, but just making sure that we recognize it if it is illegal or unsportsmanlike, and then we address it immediately, whether we warn or just talk to them, and then obviously penalize if necessary. So I'd say those three areas are kind of some concerns that I think we're going to continue to emphasize from the regional advisor. Are you as officials addressing these areas? So
That's good.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Kyle Meyer, you're up.
Hey, Greg. Good to see you.
Hey, Kyle.
My question for you was just kind of wondering, as far as like when you go around and you are evaluating officials at the Division I level, what are some like key contributors that you look for when when you give those referees, like how do they get chosen for the tournament? Like, what are some key contributors that may or may not get them chosen?
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question. There's actually, on their performance evaluation, there's 5 criteria, and one of them, they need to look the part. Obviously, fitness is important, and so we grade them on that. We grade them on call accuracy. You're probably not going to be considered unless your call accuracy throughout the year is probably somewhere in the mid 80s to mid 90s. And it doesn't have to always be call corrects. It can be no call corrects, which are just as important. So probably the one thing that I see the most is what brings scores down generally is no call incorrects. When we pass on obvious, what I think would be obvious illegal contact, or we miss travels, or any violation or foul that's no called, and it's an incorrect no call, then obviously that hurts their overall score as far as their call chart is concerned. We look at overall communication, not just with each other, but with coaches. Obviously, we've got to be able to diffuse situations as they arise in our games, and that's one area that I really it's on their performance evaluation, and there's different aspects to it, as far as whether it's with officials, other officials, with coaches, with players. We can create relationships that will help us kind of diffuse some of those situations. And I think it's important to foster those relationships, as far as with assistant coaches, with players, head coaches. We need to know their names. We need to make sure that we're, presenting ourselves as human beings, and we're willing to communicate with them. That's probably one area that's really key. Rules knowledge is imperative. and sometimes that's hard to grade necessarily because it may be a very easy game and it's just, everything's pretty smooth. And, I grade them as, having good rules knowledge, although sometimes when things present themselves and we have really, really tough plays, that those are a little, a different kind of scenario. So we have to kind of look at those individually. And then composure, core composure. Do they handle those stressful situations? It's not always about communication, but presenting yourself in a positive way that you're open to that communication. But how are you composed when it's tough with officials, with players, with coaches? That's another area that we look at pretty strongly. So really, that's pretty much it as far as the performance evaluation. But I do the same thing with our officials in the GAC and the MIAA. Probably just not as extensive. I don't do if I go to a game, I usually don't do a call chart, but I'll make notes and try to go in after the game and share those with crews and then when it comes down to the end of the season, it all kind of adds up as far as who I select to work in the tournament. Then,
that's true. That is very true. All right, thank you. I hope that provides the answer that you're looking for.
Yes, thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
you bet, Kyle.
Okay, excellent. Okay, let's travel over to Southern Illinois. Clarissa Gross.
Well, happy birthday, Greg, and hello,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thanks.
As I kind of look about like who all is on this call, and I look at a lot of faces that I feel like are on the same like level as me as far as like just a few years in. What do you feel like are the biggest challenges for us as we're trying to like climb that rope and trying to to obviously like gain more games each season? What advice do you have for us?
I think we all kind of set our expectations high, and we know where we want to get to. But I think one of the best things we can do as officials is to, and it's not always easy. And I'm sure we've all heard it before, and I heard it as I was moving up. Just be patient and let the growth, let the experiences that you do have, even if it's not at the Division II level or at the Division I level, kind of help build and develop your own kind of personality on the floor. You can't be like somebody you see on TV. That's come from 20 years of Division I experience. You have to be yourself, and you have to use your own personality to kind of develop that court presence, so to speak. And I think one of the other things from my perspective as a coordinator, I have to help you and foster you to develop those relationships with coaches. If you've gone into a game and it's two coaches that you've never seen before, that can be a stressful situation. I want to put you in where you can see, or other coaches can see you, but it has to be the right game, so to speak. And that's probably one of the challenges for me, at least at the Division II level, is we have some exhibitions and we have some non-conference games that I can help kind of build schedules with some younger officials. But we also have some very tough interconference challenges at the beginning of the year that can be really, really tough games. And I try to work some younger officials into those, but you may be working, you're going to work with two veteran people, which I trust. There are several people on this call that are veterans in the MIAA and the GAC, and I know that I can trust them to, they're not taking care of you, but they want to see you be successful too. So putting you in those situations with them and developing that time that coaches see you is certainly a thing that I kind of strive for with younger officials. And then, at some point you just got to kind of get out there, and I'll put you in games that would be a little tougher, hopefully maybe in your third to fourth year, and see how you can see how you react to those types of games, and just how your overall performance is in those games. So I hope that kind of sheds a little light. That's probably one of the tougher things for me as a coordinator, is kind of developing. I don't really want to hire people that I don't intend on using to work. And so if I trust you, at some point I'm going to put you out there and kind of see how you do, and then get feedback from my referees, my veteran officials, and these are often people that I use in camp as clinicians, and gives me a perspective on how you're doing without actually having eyes on you. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
Good question, Clarissa. I do have a question from Nicole Brandon.
Okay.
Greg, her question is, what are the biggest challenges you face as a regional director in basketball?
I'm still challenged by this, but I hope I do a better job with it this year. As a regional advisor, we set our own schedules. So we have access to every coordinator in the country to their assignments. So we know ahead of time in October, or whenever they release their assignments, we know Patty's assignments, and Lisa and Debbie and Violet. And my biggest challenge, my first year, and I got better with it last year, is just setting my schedule and being able to. I'll just use an example. Maybe I'm going to KU on one night, and then I look at the schedule, and next night Nebraska's at home, so I can go from Lincoln or from Lawrence to Lincoln and see a game there, and maybe go to Iowa State or Iowa. Just kind of using everybody's schedule and knowing I've got those 60 to 70 officials in front of me that I need to see. Where are they working? That's been a challenge. And then we just like with officials, we schedule all our own travel, whether it's flying or we have to rent cars all the time. So that's another big challenge for me, because I live in a fairly small market and I have one place to rent from. And Enterprise here in Warrensburg usually is very limited on the number of cars they have. So I may rent a car. All of our travel has to go through Shorts Travel, which is in Cedar Falls, Iowa. We call them. I tell them I need a car on blah, blah, blah. And then I go to Enterprise that morning, and they don't have a car for me. So I do it. Obviously, I can go to Kansas City. I can go several around me, but that has been a real frustrating. The travel is, I probably travel more now than when I officiated, really, because I'm usually out at least 4 days of the week, and it may be longer if I can do a swing. Maybe I go, because my Midwest region stretches all the way from Arkansas and Oklahoma north to Minnesota, South Dakota, and North Dakota. It goes over to Wisconsin, Michigan. So I have 14 states that I can, and we can go other places as well, but that's kind of my region. And our goal is to see every conference at least once in the season. So I have the MAC, I have the all of Patty's conferences. I have 2 or 3 of Lisa's conferences, and then all of the ones right in the Midwest that I had officiated in. So that's probably another big challenge for me. But as far as being on the road and getting to games, I don't mind driving. And I know most of the arenas. I know where to go. So we're really only there. I get there about a half hour before the game starts, and then as soon as the game's over and I can get out, since we can't go in the locker room, then I'm out and on the road. So travel for all of us is a challenge in the Midwest. We run into weather. I try to do my Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan trips in November, if you understand what I'm saying. And then I head south from there. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's a really good response, and that's true. And I would imagine that when it comes to officiating, it's something we've all experienced at one point in time or another. Sometimes the biggest challenge is the travel.
Yeah,
Sometimes just getting to and getting from the game is more stressful than actually working the game itself. Or
that's
or on your behalf, actually observing and capturing your information you need. Sometimes it's a matter, can we get there or not?
yeah.
Let's roll right into Tanner Gray. Tanner Gray, do you have a question for Greg?
Yes. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Tanner.
So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I was wondering, do you have like a certain formula you look for in each one of your crew members when you assemble a crew, like for a specific game, different qualities? How a crew do you think will work together? Like, do you have a formula for that, or is it just kind of depending on the game type thing?
Coaches don't want to hear that it's by the game, but it certainly that has the chemistry of the game and history of whether it's I'll use the MIAA, if it's Washburn, Emporia, which are big rivals, or Central Missouri and Missouri Western. That does play into it, but I want to put people on the game together that I feel like I don't have a written formula. It's more by feel and hopefully knowing my staff and knowing their personalities. And it doesn't always work. I'm not going to tell you I'm perfect with making assignments, but I have a feeling that knowing coaches' personalities and knowing the matchup and knowing the personalities of the officials, I think I can do a pretty good job of getting people on the floor together that will hopefully be able to work together to put out a good product. And obviously we have to have an R, we have to have a U1 and a U2, but our R may not be our best rule person. So I want to make sure I find somebody to put on there that I know is a good rule person that can keep us out of the soup if something comes up rule wise that needs to be addressed. So I look at demographics of the crew. In our game, there's going to be games when I have all males. There's going to be games that I might have all females, but if we can get a blended crew, obviously that's and some we have female coaches. I think it's good for our game for our players to have good role models with our female officials. It's it's just realistic though that we don't have as many females on our staff yet. But I think we're making headway with that, but that's certainly something I would look at as well.
Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
Greg, Lakeisha Wright has a follow-up to that same question, and she put it in the chat. She said, when making travel assignments, do you try to pair officials from the same state together as travel partners when possible?
Yeah, and I think I've been assigning the MIAA for 15 years now, and I was probably, and Larry can probably attest to this, I was oversensitive with our officials with their travel. I really wanted to make sure that I put at least two people together, and states, sometimes I can't do that, especially Lakeisha's from Colorado. If I do have, I think I have about 6 staff members from Colorado, and if I'm going to bring them to, let's say, Fort Hays, Kansas, or Hays, Kansas, they're probably going to ride together, because it's a strong 4 hours for most of them to get there. And I try not to do that on a Thursday or a Wednesday during the week, because I know everybody has jobs. And sometimes it's tough to get away from jobs, but on a Saturday, then I'm getting better at expanding. The joke amongst coordinators is when officials say, well, I'll travel anywhere. Well, I don't feel comfortable with the MIAA paying 315, I think, this year. I'm not traveling you 6 hours to do a game most of the time, unless an official's requested that. And that's happened before. So if I can keep you in that 3 to 4 hour range, that's what I feel more comfortable with, and you can still make some money, because I know that's important, but it has to kind of fit. So that's I wouldn't say necessarily state, but certainly I try to, even on a Thursday or a Wednesday night, if I can put two people together and it works with the crew and it works with the game, I'm going to do that. So
Yeah. Yes, that's good. That's really, really good. Our next question, Megan Gallagher, you placed a question in the chat. Would you like to share your question, or would you like for me to read it for you?
Either or. I can read it.
Go ahead. There you go.
This is more like asking for a friend. Like I don't think that I'm at this level of self-reporting yet, but I just thought it came to my mind, so I figured I'd say it. But it was furthering Leanne's question earlier on. A personal mentor of mine has given me a book called Brag, The Art of Tooting Your Own Horn Without Blowing It. And then at the bottom of the page, it says, if you don't speak up for yourself, who will? So with the potential for limitations for being observed, what examples have you had where officials have brought positive attention to themselves and or their progress or abilities, or how would you suggest officials start owning self-reporting?
Okay. I don't mind. It doesn't always work for me, but I don't mind an official saying, hey, I'm going to be working this game. If you get a chance to watch this game tape, especially if it's one of my games, that I assign, obviously I will probably be more likely to watch that, because I watch way more film now than I did when I was refereeing. I'll self-report on that one. And I watched a fair amount of film, but now, I mean, I'm on DB Sport about every day, really, multiple times during the day, most of the time. Trying to look at call charts and whether I've evaluated them properly. But I don't mind somebody saying, hey, take a look if you would. I don't mind if I have them kind of on my radar as far as getting ready to work, maybe the Division II tournament, I'll send clips of them to our national coordinator, and she wants that. She loves to have Division II clips, and two of my clips from this year made it into the NCAA video, which is it was great to see from. I think they were both from the MIAA, but though that gives not only our national coordinator at the Division I level, but Connie Perkins, our Division II national coordinator, an opportunity to see some of our people. So I think I don't mind self-promoting. I was never, I was always kind of I kind of played under the rules of, do your job and you'll be noticed sort of kind of mindset. But I know it's tough, especially when people have the aspirations to move up and they feel like they're not being seen. I think that's obviously one way to do it. And we all know about camps. We all know about those opportunities to be in front of people. I put a lot of responsibility on people that work for me at camps and give them a lot of feedback. But I I see a lot of games during camps that maybe you don't realize. And so it's an opportunity. That's an opportunity to self promote, and I try to talk to officials at camps because if I see you on the floor, um, and it's a tough game and you're doing a good job, that's great. But I want to know about you. I want to know what you do for a living. What's your, family background. I just need, and I say this at every camp, I want to hire good officials, but I really want to hire good people. That kind of goes to Tanner's question too. If I've got three good people on the floor, they're probably going to get along. And I don't want to put somebody in our staff that is going to be the person that nobody wants to work with. I mean, that doesn't do anybody any good, and it just creates poor chemistry within our crew. So hopefully that's shed a little bit of light, Megan. That's a really good question, though. I don't mind self-promoting. If somebody, because I've gotten, even during the season, I've gotten resumes from officials that are maybe going to come to camp the next summer. And, it tells me, rather than just, this is what I've done officiating, this is kind of my work background and education. And so I don't mind that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's, this mentor of mine is from the professional world, like corporate, so it popped in my mind because it is such a very different atmosphere here, right? Don't go to camps for work, it's
right. Yeah.
If you are new to it, how do you find out all of this? Like, what does a good resume for a referee look like? How do you build that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think I think you need to have some work related things, some education related things. But obviously, if you are applying for a job, you're going to put your work experience on there. So I think your levels that you officiate, maybe some postseason things if you've gotten assignments, those sort of things. So those are all, I think, good to have on an officiating resume. I don't think it needs to be just about officiating. That's my point of view. So, yeah.
Yep,
Thank
I
you.
agree. Great question, Meg. Great follow-up, Megan. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Quick question from Bazil Banks out of Texas. His question is, how often do you give officials a heads up regarding past problems with teams in an upcoming matchup?
Larry can speak to this. When it gets to be January and February, and our conference play starts in December, early December, in the MIAA and the GAC. So in January and February, we're starting to see second matchups, the repeat matchup. And oftentimes on a Saturday morning, I'll call, we'll have 13 games usually on a Saturday. I'll call or text at least all 13 crew chiefs to give them a heads up on, hey, make sure you're looking at box scores from the previous matchup. Make sure you're talking to your crew about coaches. Maybe we've had a technical in the previous matchup, or maybe it was just the game before that a coach had a technical. I really try to make sure that our crew chiefs at least have that information. I know that they're already researching the game probably, but they need to know from me that this is important for you to go into your pregame and talk about how we're going to handle these situations. If I know we've had table crew issues at a certain venue, I want them to be aware so they can, whether it's monitor or shot clock operator, whatever it may be, that they can have a heads up and kind of prep for that. So, early on in the season, probably not so much. I may reach out to a crew chief. Hey, you've got a new staff member. Make sure that you're reaching out. If I've made the assignment so they can ride with you, all the better. make sure you scoop them up and maybe drive to the game and just kind of ease their anxiety level if there is any. So, yeah.
Greg, that's a great point because sometimes with an official, they could be someone who's recently added to the staff for the conference, or could be an official been in the conference for a while, but they're going to a new location for the first time.
Right.
And sometimes you add that additional anxiety of not even knowing where to park,
Yep.
what door to enter, and where's the locker room.
Yeah.
We have to be willing to share that information so that we can at least take that piece of anxiety off their plate. That's one less thing they have to worry about. All right. TC Coleman, do you have a question for Greg today?
Yes. Hi, Greg.
Hey, TC.
TC, I think you muted yourself. There you go.
My bad. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. Actually, I have two questions. In a camp environment, what qualities do you identify in an official that helps you to categorize them as a crew chief?
Okay. I'll go back to some of the kind of the 5 areas that I evaluate officials during the year. I look at fitness. Can they keep up pace of the game? Do they help with the communication? Do they promote the communication during the game? Are they ones that get the crew together? In camp environments, I've recently started assigning crews, but it's very random. I'm not looking at every game in a camp environment and hand picking who. It's more of a mathematical kind of setup. But looking at communication, looking at their court presence, which is kind of it's hard to quantify, I guess, court presence, but certainly, their confidence level, how they carry themselves on the floor. Again, rules, play calling, positioning is big. And I didn't really mention this when I talked about evaluation, but so much of our what we evaluate at the Division I level is correct positioning, which puts you in a position then that will elevate your correct calls. Or if you're out of position and you guess, then obviously our correct calls are going to go down. So I look at that during camp, and just how you get along and stuff off the floor too. Maybe during a meeting or during our question and answer, how do you command yourself during those things, and how do you take care of? We had Ruth Ann, my wife, takes care of a lot of the scheduling when camp actually is going on, and she'll actually talk to me. Hey, this official came to me and recognized that there was a conflict with the schedule and needed to be rescheduled. She appreciates that, and in turn, that tells me how they're going to take care of their kind of off-court, even non-calling, non-officiating type stuff. And that's very important for me to know that. And, my clinicians, I rely on them really heavily to give me some feedback. And it's not always just on their evaluations that they submit to me. I mean, I talk to them, when we talk after and during camp, and so those are things that kind of raise the person from maybe initially the U2 to the U1 to the referee, and then you just got to give them opportunities. I think if you feel like they can handle those during the season, and kind of go from there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can I ask one more question?
You bet.
Okay. Okay. Once you have a first impression of an official, how hard is it to change that impression?
Um, I think it if it doesn't become a pattern of what I've observed, I think it's pretty easy to change it. It can be as much as, stepping up and helping a crew with a tough situation. That obviously escalates. Um, if it becomes a pattern, just like with anything, human nature kind of takes over, and if we see that it's not going to change, and they've been asked to address that, then um, then it takes much longer, I would say. And I think we're creatures of habit, not only in our mechanics and things we do on the floor, but in the way we communicate and the way we treat people and those sort of things. So um, I think there's two sides to it, TC, and it can be pretty quick, and it can change. Otherwise, it takes a while. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. Good question, TC.
Yep.
Hey, let's travel back over to Colorado. Faye, are you with us? Do you have a question for Greg?
Hello. Happy birthday, Greg.
Hey, Faye, thanks.
Um, so as an official this past year, I feel like I had a learning curve with communication with assigners and coaches in trying to figure out as a crew chief what to put in game notes.
Okay.
So what I learned is what I think is small might be big to someone else. And so how do we as a crew chief distinguish what to put in to a game note and what to leave out, if anything,
Okay.
and let it be ranting?
Yeah. I think from my perspective, um, if if you think if you think a coach is going to call me about something, I need to know ahead of time, and that probably warrants a call. But a game report, if you think we had poor communication, I need that in there. If we kicked a rule, I need to know ahead of time, or you even suspect that we kicked a rule, then we need to make sure that we're letting the coordinator know. And every coordinator is going to be a little bit different, and every game report is going to be different. It depends on the platform. So generally, this is something that I'll kind of address with our officials, maybe in our preseason meeting. It used to be easier because we were face to face, but now things have changed, and most conferences are going virtual, at least at the Division II level. But I would rather have more information than less. I don't care about if you think you're putting in too many details, that doesn't really bother me. And I can sift through those and make sure that um, I'll use what I need to. But I would say be more detailed than less. And some people forget about like non-basketball things like table crews. I want to know, especially at the Division II level, our crews generally are working 2 games a night, and they're working with two different sets of rules, 2 different shot clock formats, or not shot clock as well as timeout formats. So I need to know if there's any issues so I can address those through the schools and through the administrators. And those are something I'd like to have our game reports from our crew chiefs done in 48 hours. Some people want 24, but our games are usually spread apart at least 48 hours. So that gives me a window to contact a university if I need to. So I hope that sheds some light. Is that kind of what you were looking for?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Faye. I really appreciate your question. Larry, it's good seeing you, brother. How you doing?
I am well, thank you, Wayne. It's good to see a lot of family members here. A lot of good wingmen out on the floor.
Come on,
Absolutely.
man. Yes, it
And
is.
to get to see the boss live on his birthday. That always works too.
That's even better.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, we have one more follow-up question, Greg.
Okay.
It's from Leanne Stevenson. And our follow-up question is, what are the most important elements an official should look for when reviewing film?
Okay. From past experience, and I've learned so much from Penny the last couple years. To you need to be self-critical, and we need to make sure that we're focusing on tough plays that whether we perceive them as being correct calls or not, we need to find plays if they're the easy ones. I mean, the obvious, split foot travel, or you got to play to the basket and some drive, she just gets clobbered. Those are easy. Pick out the ones that are tough calls for you and ones that you maybe think you got right, but go back and dissect those again and take advantage of different angles if you have that available to you. Certainly at the Division II level, it's usually tougher because we're running through probably synergy. Most schools aren't going to have DB Sport, and they're not going to have multiple camera angles. So find those tough plays. You don't have to break down the whole game, because there's segments of the game probably that things are just smooth and we're just rolling, and we feel like the crew's doing a good job, and there's been no issues. That's fine. Kind of put that aside and go find something that's a little more challenging, because you don't need to spend 2 or 3 hours breaking down a game film. Take a 10-minute or a half and break that down and try to find those plays that really, and they don't always have, we always want to find the plays that there are plays and we got right, and that doesn't really do us any good. Maybe you had a great game and you were in that 95% correct call. Now go break down the film on your crew and look at positioning. And maybe it was a play that a crew member missed, that you could have helped with in your secondary, but maybe you weren't in the right position to see that play. Or you were focused on a competitive matchup that really, really didn't make that much difference, and you could have gone and got in your secondary and helped with that play. So there's always little tricks that you can do to break down film. But I'd say pick out a part of the game, you can do the whole game, but it usually is a little more time consuming to do that. If you got the time, do it, and there's always things to learn, whether you had a great game or you struggled. So
good answer, Greg. I concur. We have a question in the chat from Kevin Scott out of Dallas.
Okay.
And this question is, if you are a leader in the corporate world, how should we translate that to the court without stepping on toes?
Well, I think we all need to have that level of humility, and we're all different personality traits. We all have different personality traits, but I think if you step on the floor, and I'll use Kevin as an example. He was just hired in the Great American Conference. You need to be a little more humble, and I'm not saying you're not. I'm just saying, as an example, don't come across as being the CEO of the crew the first day you're coming out on the floor. You need to create that level of camaraderie with the crew, and the U2, if you're the U2, can certainly help with that. It's not always, the referee, I think, is tasked with certain things, but they don't always have to be the one to create the dialogue let's say in a pregame.
Right.
I used to, when I was a new R and I had veterans working with me, I would often assign, I'd say, hey, Larry, we're going to talk about C coverage. You take that, and somebody else do trail or different aspects of the pregame. So, you have to foster the the level of camaraderie within the crew from the very beginning. It may even start on the car ride, to the game. You may be talking about other stuff, about family, and that's fine. But I think that's important for the in your situation, Kevin, to create that. And it's fine to be the A-type personality, but sometimes you kind of have to back it down. And there's times, even if you're the new person on the crew, if something goes south on the crew, then you can step in and maybe step up and help and save the crew. So
that is true. That is very, very true.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Larry posted in the chat.
Yep.
Okay, Larry, reviewing NTs and quizzes and chatting about them while in the car is I agree with this 100%. It's a great way to get all engaged and sharing before you arrive on the site. Your pregame, especially if all three be riding together, sometimes you're not, sometimes it's just two of you. If you're all three riding together, your pregame actually begins the moment you pick up your partners. And it is those conversations we have, not just about the upcoming game, but it could be our experiences we've had in recent games, things we've noticed, things we've learned from the quizzes and the videos we're watching from on RefQuest. It could be situations that we have in our job that applies to officiating, things we've learned in life that can apply directly to officiating. And so we're having these conversations. Not only are we sharing information, but we're getting closer as a crew as we're traveling to the game site. So now when you get into that game and you do have that atypical play, and if we're all comfortable with our dialogue and our ability to communicate and we know we can talk to each other, you're more apt to bring that information when we need it versus sitting on it or being unsure of whether I should share it or not. So yes, I agree with Larry 100%. It starts in the car on the way to the arena, on the way to the game. Greg, I think a nice way to wrap up, it would be, do you happen to have a question for the group that you'd like to pose to them?
Man, you're putting me on the spot here, Wayne. I would, instead of you mind if I change that just a little bit?
Not at all.
Okay. I just want to say I appreciate so much what Wayne's doing and his training and evaluation during the off season and during the season as well. And thank everybody for taking an hour out of your Sunday afternoon to listen to a old guy about officiating. But it's a pleasure to be able to join everybody and to see some of your faces. I thought I saw Blanca's name pop up there a second ago.
Yes, she's here.
It's so great to see so many of you that are on staff, and congratulations to the ones that were just hired, Kyle and Kevin. I don't know if I have any other new staff members on there, but it's obviously paying off for everybody, your training, and certainly I appreciate what you're doing, and it just continues to grow our game, and I see it from the Division II level up. When I see you make that step up to the Division I level, that's the best thing for me. So I am certainly behind you and wish you the best of luck. And if you ever just like Megan's question, don't hesitate to reach out to me during the season, even if you're not on my staff. I want to be a resource for everybody, and now especially with my connection through the regional advisors position. So again, appreciate everybody, and thanks, Wayne, for giving me this opportunity to share a few things.
Of course, Greg. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day on your birthday, man. I really appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah,
Hey,
when you get to be as old as I am, there's not it's pretty basically like most every other day.
True that. Well, hey, Greg, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, brother. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to share with everyone. Everyone, thank you for your attention, for your questions, for your engagement. And I just love the fact that I guarantee you that everyone is able to pull something out of this discussion today that they can take forward with them, and it will propel them into this upcoming season and even further. Any questions? Oh, Greg, there are some additional questions that we have. I'll shoot them to you. You can answer them at your leisure, and then I'll share your responses with the group.
Okay, sounds
All
good.
right. All right, people. Hey, everyone have a great day. Thank you once again for being here today.
Yeah, go Chiefs. Go Chiefs.